So first, thank you very much for having me today. I'm João Cosas. I'm from the Plant Micromolecules Research Center at CERMAV. How do I do this? Yeah, there. In Grenoble. And today I'm going to show you an application of this fault-induced force microscopy to characterize the interfaces of nanocomposites. But first, before I would like to talk a little bit about where I come from. So I work at Grenoble. You might know the place because of the mountains, the synchrotron, and our telepheric. But we are also known as the Cellulose Valley. And this is because we have several different labs working on glycoscience, plant fibers, biorefinery, and also bio-based materials. It's actually very, very close to each other. So from CERMAV to DCM, the LRP, we are all around like 500 meters away. So which means that we can have a lot of collaborations very easily. So in this project, for example, we are CERMAV, FCBA, and CTP, so working with structure and properties of cellulose, wood processing and some chemical treatments, and processing of paper and board. And I wanted to apply this kind of materials to some energy materials, so I called my friends from CMAS at CA Grenoble to try to apply this to energy. So what kind of energy? So we are interested in proton exchange membrane for fuel cells, which is a device that transforms hydrogen and oxygen into electricity in a kind of green way. In the middle of this device, we have a membrane that is responsible for the proton conductivity between the electrodes, but also the gas separation between these two gases, right? The benchmark today is the NSFE material, which has a high proton conductivity, and this is mainly because we have these acidic groups there and a nanostructure composed of phase separation of hydrophobic and hydrophilic phases, which give us these conductive channels. There are a lot of problems with this as well, because this is has a fluorine chemistry, which means that degradation products are toxic. So the challenge is to substitute this kind of material are mainly low-cost materials, fluorine-free, with this good gas impermeability and also a high proton conductivity, and essentially a high durability. In terms of strategies to do so, we can sulfonate non-fluorinated matrices, so mainly polyethyl ketones, polyamides, blend of these different kinds, partial cross-linking, some chemical modifications, but also composite membranes, so trying to use nanofillers for reinforcement and other properties to improve actually this kind of non-fluorinated materials. Okay, so in CERMAV we work with cellulose, as I said. Cellulose can come from trees. It's part of the plant cell wall. It's a biosourced material, the most rich biosourced biopolymer in Earth. It's crystalline and it has a reactive surface there that we can modify. We have basically we can have it in the form of micro or nanofibrils, so with several lengths, with several micrometers of length, but also through some chemical treatments. For example, we can have it in the form of nanocrystals. So lengths from 100 to 1 micron, depending on the source of the plant. But actually, it doesn't come only from plants. We can also have this kind of materials from animals. So there is this kind of marine animal named tunicate, which makes these very beautiful long cellulose nanocrystals, which is very interesting for nanocomposites. Now, there are several people trying to use this kind of materials already for this kind of membrane. So here is a compilation of different works. And mainly they use cellulose for reinforcement. But the thing is that when you put a certain amount of the cellulose nanocrystal, your conductivity will go down. There are some strategies where people do surface modifications to increase this proton conductivity, and our target is to go towards something like that, right? Okay, so our strategy here then is to study a nanocomposite membrane based on sPEEK, which is a ionomer membrane, non-fluorinated one, and then use this long tunicate cellulose nanocrystals to make the composite, which should bring first a mechanical reinforcement to withstand the different mechanical stresses inside the fuel cell, but also lower the gas permeability of our membrane. The problem is that cellulose is not conductive, so we would lower the conductivity, as we said before. One strategy to counter that would be to modify the tunicate cellulose nanocrystals, so sulfonate them in a way that I could increase the charges all around my CNCs, and then maybe add some surface transport mechanisms on the surface of our CNCs, and then have a better conductivity. Okay, this is the idea. I bought a commercial sPEEK, and this is important, you'll see why. Dissolution in DMSO, and then I disperse 10% of my CNCs inside, unmodified and modified ones. And with the gas, we cat, and then we have our composite membrane. So my main question here was, okay, how this surface functionalization actually affects my polymer filler interfaces, and how this affect my properties at the end. And to try to answer this question, we use AFMIR, so sorry, I'm going to explain already, again, some cartoonish stuff to explain you the method. So photo-induced force microscopy is an AFMIR technique, which means that we have a laser to follow the motions of our cantilever, of course, but also we have a pulse-tunable IR source next to it that is also focused on the sample. Now, PiFM is a no-contact mode, so what we do, we approach the surface until a certain level, we try to be in the attractive regime, and then, as Rudiger said, we're gonna tune the laser to a wave number, which can be absorbed by my sample, causing a local heating, a local expansion, and some dipole forces, which the ensemble is then detected by the motion of our tip. If I'm in a specific location, I can vary the wave number and then have a local IR spectrum. And if I'm interested in a particular wave number, we can map this. So basically, it gives us molecular information with a high spatial resolution, a depth analysis, as I said, from 20 to 500 nanometers, gives us this possibility of doing these functional mappings, and it's non-destructive, as long as your laser is not too powerful. So I'll give you an example. Very fast example, it's a block copolymer of PS PMMA. If I do the topography, we cannot really distinguish both of the blocks. But if I tune the laser to one band that is specific from PS, I start to have a contrast. If I do the same thing for a PMA, I have another contrast. And if I put them together, we can clearly separate each of the blocks. So here, separated of 41 nanometers, which gives us a lateral resolution of 5 nanometers. Okay, so let's apply then this to our membranes. So this is our sPEEK CNC without any modification. And rather than doing my analysis on the surface, I wanted to see what happens on the cross-section of this membrane. So I cross-section it with cryo-ultramicrotomy. So what you see here is the whole cross-section of the membrane, and we're going to do the AFM in the middle. So if I do topography imaging here, I can see like some small particles, some cavities and stuff, but we don't know what it is. So if I do my spectrum here, I can clearly see the peaks related to my CNC filler. If I go to the matrix, I have the peaks from sPEEK, which means that now I can define which are the interesting wave numbers to map. In this case, 1594 for the sPEEK, 1055 for CNCs, and I also wanted to see this 1250 because it's related to the sulfonated groups that I'm going to graft afterwards. Okay, now, first thing, how is the distribution of my CNCs inside my membrane? So I tune the laser to 1055, and we can clearly see where the signal is higher, is where my CNCs are. You can see that we have some long things here, but also some round particles. Why is that? Because instead of looking at the top surface of the membrane, but we're looking at the cross-section. So these are very long, so they align in the thickness direction. So of course we have some aligned ones here, but mostly we are looking at the cross-section of them, which is actually good because we can take a look on the interfaces as well. And now I have a problem because I wanted to see what happened with my sPEEK, and then mapping the two wave numbers there. So for sPEEK and for sulfonation, they are supposed to be complementary. So here I see the CNCs, here I do not see them, and here I do not see them. But there are some zones where I could see that even the wave number for sPEEK was lower. So it means that I have something else there. When we put them all together, we can see these 50 to 100 nanometers zones, which means that there is something different in my material. If I do my IR spectra here, I see the peaks that are related to my sPEEK. Everything is normal. But when I go to the blue zone, actually, I see completely different peaks. Very close, but still different, right? So related to Lucas' question, actually, what I did here was to put this in a database, in a commercial database, to try to identify it. And actually, the peaks are very well related to this polymer here, PES, polyether sulfone, which has a similar structure as sPEEK, but is not at all the same material. The problem is that I didn't have this information before. When I bought the sPEEK, I bought it as sPEEK. Nobody told me that there was PS inside, right? But so this is an unexpected result, but that I didn't know because the provider didn't say. But also, it's impossible to identify using bulk FTIR. Unless you know exactly what you're looking for, you cannot have this information, right? So, unexpected result, but it shows how powerful this technique can be. Okay, so we did the same thing for the nanocomposites with the modifications. We can see also the blue zones there, so it comes from the matrix. And the idea here is to start seeing what we can have from the interfaces. So we did line spectra here, taking one full spectra at each 10 nanometers. So we can have a plethora of forest of different spectrum. And as we can correlate the position with the spectra, we can actually say, okay, this is the interface. Here I'm only seeing the tunicate with the sulfonated ones, other interface, the matrix, and stuff. Okay? So first we're gonna see if my modifications actually work inside the crystals. So this is the CNC inside this this composite here, and the sulfonated one inside this. So we do see some peaks, which means that it can be related to the sulfonation that I did before, but also I see some overlap with sPEEK. So what does it mean? Does I have an interdiffusion of sPEEK or some other effect here? But anyway, it means that there is some interaction of my CNCs with my matrix that I didn't see before. Now let's take a look on the interface itself, how if there is any difference. So here is the composite with just the CNC, so not modified. And what I did was some cross-section analysis of the filler matrices. So here the cross-section is done at different directions. And what we see here is the 1055, so the peak related to the CNC, and the 1250 related to the sulfonation. And what we see here is rather a sharp interface. Sorry. Sorry. So like this, if I go from the sPEEK and I pass through the CNCs, I have this sharp transition. Now, if I do the same thing with the composite, modified composite, we start to see some different stuff. So for example, at this, we do have some sharp transitions, but we also have this kind of middle ground transition here with a kind of a plateau. So I'm kind of changing something at the interface, right? And this seems to be quite heterogeneous. So my hypothesis here is that, yes, indeed it is heterogeneous. So how the surface, the sulfonated groups are actually distributed on the surface of my CNCs. And we can imagine something like this. If I do an analysis where I cross two of the sulfonated domains, I have this plateau, this middle ground plateau in each of the interfaces. And if I go through one modified and unmodified interface, I will have a combination of these two signals, right? Okay, so we learned a lot of different stuff about the materials and their interfaces. How does this correlate with the bulk properties of our membranes? So here we did some mechanical properties. This is DMA, and when I put my CNCs inside, I see an increase on the mechanical properties. And if I modify the surface of my CNCs, I also see an improvement, which maybe is related to this better filler matrix interactions. In terms of permeability, the permeability, even putting 10% of the tunicate, it goes down 1 order of magnitude. So this mainly because of the tortuosity of the path for our oxygen to go through. So this is good as well. And then in terms of conductivity, if I just put 10% of my tunicate CNCs, I didn't see any change. But with the sulfonation, it changed a little bit, right? So this means that, yes, we might have an effect on the transport mechanisms at the surface of our modified CNCs. But basically, this means that I can tailor the properties of my nanocomposites, playing around with the amount of CNCs, but also with the degree of sulfonation of my CNCs modified. Okay? So with that, I would like to go to the conclusion. So my objective here was to design, produce, and characterize these nanocomposites based on sPEEK and CNCs, and analyze their interfaces. So with PiFM, we were able to do mapping of this functional group, so very useful for morphological analysis, but also phase size and distributions. The nanospectroscopy analysis, we can see the local chemical structure of our materials, which is very interesting. And in this case, I had some unexpected results because I saw PES inside my sPEEK that was not supposed to be there. And in terms of the interface chemical characterization, we could see this filler matrix interaction. So when I did my sulfonation, I do have a different, better interface with my matrix. And also these sulfonated groups that we added, they are most probably heterogeneously distributed on the surface of our composites. And it do have some effects on the mechanical, the permeability, and on the conductivity of our materials. So with that, I would like to thank again for the invitation to be here today. My colleagues from CERMAV and from Siemens and Molecular Research that helped us to do this work, and you all for your attention.